In the year 2487, deep in the Orion Belt, the galactic survey vessel Valiant Echo floated in near silence, orbiting an abandoned zone designated as Sector D-99. For centuries, it was labeled void, a dead patch of space where no star shined, no planet spun, and no reason existed for even dust to drift. Yet, from this precise location, a signal had been captured. Not just any signal, a triangular wave packet pulsing at intervals matching the Fibonacci sequence, encoded with a language that resembled no known civilization. Commander Rylas Vorn, a seasoned spacefarer with streaks of gray in his once coal-black hair, stood rigid at the bridge. His eyes, seasoned with the weight of interstellar diplomacy and war, stared at the waveform on the main holoscreen. Behind him, Ensign Marie Davin was decoding the transmission, her fingers dancing over the console like she was weaving stardust. The signal had no source, no traceable origin point, just vibration. But then an anomaly. A minor gravitational hiccup so small that ordinary scanners wouldn't catch it. The Valiant Echo's deep-field sensors, however, were custom-built for anomaly detection. Something had moved in the darkness. Not from, but within the black expanse of D-99. A sphere black on black, bigger than Jupiter, suddenly phased into their readings. Cloaked, but not entirely. It pulsed once, then vanished. "Play the signal again," Rylas ordered. The sound echoed like a heartbeat carved into crystal, thump, thump, thump. And then a whisper, barely audible, seemingly inside the minds of everyone on the bridge, "Return what was taken." Gasps filled the room. Davin clutched her head. "Commander, this isn't just sound. It's cognitive resonance. It's inside me." Suddenly, systems across the Valiant Echo dimmed. Light bent unnaturally. Through the main viewport, the darkness outside seemed to breathe. And within that breath, lines appeared, symmetrical, angular, alive. A base. No, a structure hidden inside the space-time fabric. The Zorvex Outpost. It was no human creation. It hovered inside a rift of antimatter, a place where time reversed and gravity peeled itself like skin. Old as galaxies. Forgotten by all but one. "Sir," Marie whispered. "Whatever this is, it knew we were coming. It called us." Rylas turned. "Then we answer. Prepare the shuttle." In that moment, history pivoted. Not with weapons. Not with discoveries. But with a single step into the shadow between stars, toward the forgotten outpost and the alien race that watched from behind the veil. Studied the anomaly through a sensory neural headset, murmuring diagnostics to herself. Behind them, specialist Yarrow Bryn, exobiologist and survivor of 3 dead civilizations, tightened the straps of his pressure harness, jaw clenched like stone. No stars lit their way. Only the persistent pulse of the alien signal echoed through their systems, a vibration now fused with the ship's instruments like a second heartbeat. As the shuttle moved deeper, space itself seemed to unravel. It was no longer linear. Time felt staggered, jittering between frames like an ancient film reel. The outpost loomed ahead, at first an outline, then a full skeletal structure floating within the vacuum. Not built on anything. Not anchored. Just suspended. Its architecture bent Euclidean understanding, spirals folding into cubes, pyramids orbiting spheres, stairways that curled inward to nowhere. It wasn't a base, it was a thought made solid. "Activating lumen array," Marie said. A beam of soft plasma light swept forward, illuminating a hexagonal gateway carved with strange runes. The light revealed no seams or doors, but the moment the beam struck the center of the structure, the outpost responded. A ring of symbols ignited with a glow of bioluminescent green. The shuttle trembled. Then the gateway opened, not with movement, but as if reality itself had parted. Inside, there was no atmosphere, no gravity. Yet their suits detected habitable conditions. It defied science. It defied truth. They passed into the chamber, a massive rotunda of mirrors that did not reflect them. Instead, the mirrors showed others. Images of species long extinct, wars never recorded, and stars never born. The mirrors flickered and rippled like fluid, responding to their presence. Yarrow leaned closer to one and gasped. "It's showing possibilities. Alternate histories. Failed timelines." One mirror went black. A message formed in the center, glowing in alien script that somehow translated itself within their minds. "You are not the first." Suddenly, the walls twisted, reforming like a living organism reacting to stimuli. The floor beneath their feet shifted into glass, revealing an impossible sight, a massive stasis field filled with humanoid forms. Thousands, maybe millions, preserved in perfect silence, each wearing different uniforms, some centuries old. None matching Earth records. "Dear gods," Rylas whispered, "they've been collecting explorers. Or survivors. They're not dead, Marie added, scanning the readings. They're dreaming. All of them are dreaming. Connected. Then the whisper returned. In all their heads. Clearer now. Join us. See what we've seen. Yarrow gripped his head, staggering backward. They're in my mind. I see. The hiss was subtle, like air escaping a forgotten tomb, but in the vacuum of the chamber where sound shouldn't have existed, it thundered in the minds of the crew. The stasis pod cracked open with geometric precision. Not broken. Not forced. Released deliberately. The glass segments folded inward, revealing a single humanoid figure suspended in a cocoon of liquid light. Its body floated upright, pale, elongated, with veins glowing faint blue beneath translucent skin. A membrane of ancient tech separated it from the air, like reality hesitated to let it out. Rylas, hand trembling, drew his sidearm. Stand back. But Marie stepped forward, transfixed. It's not just a lifeform. It's the source. The signal we followed, it's coming from this one. It never transmitted. It dreamt, and space obeyed. Specialist Yarrow Bryn scrambled to deploy the containment net. We don't know what waking it will do. Commander, we need to extract and close this portal now. But it was too late. The liquid light surrounding the sleeper turned to vapor, and the figure fell gently onto the chamber floor, knees buckling before it stood upright with slow, unsettling grace. Its eyes opened. No pupils. Just pools of silver reflecting back not the crew, but the void behind them. And then it spoke. Not in sound. Not in words. But in a neural scream that invaded. You breached the archive of binding. The walls of the chamber reacted instantly. The mirrors shattered into swirling glyphs. A low resonance shook the floor, revealing hidden conduits, arterial corridors leading deeper into the base. The entire structure was alive, and this figure, this being, was its heart. Marie collapsed to her knees. I see it. I see what it's holding back. This isn't a base. It's a prison. Failsafe. The outpost isn't watching us. It's containing something else. The alien turned its gaze toward her. Its voice softened inside their skulls. She understands. One mind among many. Suddenly, images flooded their consciousness. Massive black tendrils writhing in cosmic clouds. Entire solar systems devoured by shadows older than time. Civilizations begging the stars for escape, only to be silenced by a presence that fed on entropy. The being before them was not the warden. It was the lock, and they had broken the seal. Yarrow fired the containment net. A lattice of magnetic filaments surged outward, but instead of restraining the being, they passed through it like mist. The figure's body began to shimmer, phasing between dimensions. It looked up and reached toward the chamber ceiling, and with a pulse of light, awakened the other pods. All across the vault, stasis units glowed and opened. One by one. Hundreds. Thousands. Each revealed entities of various shapes, species, and origins, none human. All ancient. All standing in silent synchrony, their eyes pulsing with a single message. The gate is weakening. The veil must hold. Commander Rylas activated the recall override. Marie. Yarrow. Get to the shuttle. Now. But Marie did not move. Her body was rigid, her mind consumed. The alien being touched her temple gently, and in that instant, her eyes turned silver. She turned to Rylas. It's not trying to harm us. It's recruiting us. The prison needs guards. And I accepted. Before he could argue, the chamber cracked again now. This time from beneath. A spiral of black mist oozed up through the floor, viscous, alive, and hungering. Yarrow screamed. It's coming through. Whatever they locked in here, it's breaking out. Rylas turned, dragging Marie toward the exit. Fall back. Now. But the door they'd come through had vanished, replaced by an expanding wall of shadow that moved like a tide of ink, absorbing light, sound, even hope. And then came the final whisper. The eclipse begins again. There was no exit, only descent. Where the wall had once held a sealed archway back to the shuttle, there now stood an expanding fissure spiraling downward into raw geometry. A staircase of floating hexagonal plates stretched into blackness, each one flickering underfoot like pixels of unstable code. Rylas had no choice. With Marie's body still rigid in his arms, her eyes glowing silver with alien awareness, and Yarrow barely maintaining control of his breath, they fled downward, chased not by something visible, but by a presence that corroded space itself. The further they descended, the more their suits failed to function properly. Indicators blinked in languages they didn't speak. Time lagged and surged unpredictably. At one moment, Rylas's chronometer jumped forward 3 minutes. In another, it ticked backward by one. The Zorvex Outpost had peeled away from linear time, becoming a nexus of all moments trapped between cause and effect. They emerged into a cathedral-like chamber. The vault beneath memory. Its ceiling stretched into darkness, supported by spires of braided crystal and bone. The walls pulsed with light drawn from memories not their own. Rylas watched in horror as scenes from his past, failures, lost comrades, even childhood fears, played across the walls in spectral animation. A moment later, the walls shifted, and now it was Yarrow's mind on display. A dead daughter's final message, a war-torn planet he couldn't save, and a monstrous thing he once saw beneath Europa's ice. Marie finally spoke, her voice calm but hollow. The vault feeds on memory, not to harm, to understand. This is where the Sentinels were created. Every being chosen to stand against the dark beyond had to be rewritten. Rylas's grip tightened. "You're not Marie anymore." She looked at him, one silver eye twitching with emotion. "I am, but I'm also more. They showed me what sleeps beneath. The reason this base was erased from galactic records. The reason no one comes to D99. Then the chamber shifted again. The floor became transparent, revealing an enormous sphere suspended below them. It was not solid, not truly. It was a containment shell orbiting a core of raw void energy swirling with impossible darkness. And within it an eye opened. Not metaphorical, not symbolic. A literal, God-sized eye that looked up through dimensions and saw them. It blinked once and the chamber howled. Rylas fell to his knees. Blood trickled from his nose and the taste of iron filled his mouth. Yarrow screamed and staggered backward as tendrils of darkness rose from the sphere and etched across the transparent floor, testing the limits of containment. Marie knelt beside them. "It is the first anomaly. The hunger between universes. A fragment of uncreation. The Ancient Ones built this vault not to destroy it because it cannot be destroyed, but to seal it away, powered by the collective minds of dreamers." Yarrow's hands trembled. "We're not soldiers. We're not gods. We can't fight that." The floor was dissolving beneath them, not breaking, not crumbling, but unraveling, like thread being pulled from the fabric of being itself. Rylas could feel his boots sliding, not on surface, but on meaning. Space twisted. Gravity came in sideways. Yarrow clung to a spire of fused bone glass, screaming as the transparent flooring turned into a slow vortex of black light. Below them, the god eye pulsed faster, its stare no longer passive. It was aware. And it was waking. Then stillness. A perfect silence, so complete that it rang like the absence of thought. And in that stillness, a new figure appeared, not through doors, nor teleportation, but as if it had always been there, overlooked by perception itself. It was tall beyond measure. Clad in robes of shifting fractal textures layered in star capes and languages older than atoms. Its face was blank. No eyes, no mouth. Just a mask of flowing symbols, constantly rewriting themselves into concepts Rylas couldn't understand. Marie dropped to her knees. "An architect." The figure spoke, not aloud, but into every quantum of thought they possessed. Its voice was plural, 1,000 tones whispering as one. "You have reached the binding threshold. You were not summoned. Yet you came. And now you must choose." Yarrow choked on his own breath. "Choose what? Die or die slower?" The architect turned toward him. A single glyph glowed bright across its chest, a shape that looked like a spiral eating itself. "Choose your shape in the dream." A gesture, and suddenly the chamber lit up with visions of every sentinel who had come before. Thousands of species. All once explorers. All transformed. Some wore forms of light. Others were bodiless fields. A few remained as memory echoes, conscious thought without shape. Each had taken a role in the psychic network that imprisoned the hunger. Marie stood now, no longer weak. Her voice had harmonics beneath it, tones that didn't belong to her alone. "I accept it already. They don't enslave. They invite. Because only those who choose can withstand the price." Rylas stepped forward. "And if I refuse?" The architect raised a hand. Instantly, Rylas saw himself and Yarrow leaving, fleeing through a fractal corridor forced open by a temporal tear. Escaping back to the valiant echo. Telling command. Failing to make them believe. Then darkness. The void spreading. Earth gone. Galaxies unraveling. Because without new dreamers, the prison would crack. Yarrow gasped. "You showed him, didn't you? A future without us." The architect did not reply. It did not need to. The vault around them pulsed. The tendrils of the hunger scraped harder against its shell. The stasis field flickered. One of the oldest dreamers, some creature with crystalline wings, disintegrated. The void stirred. The mask on the architect's face split into 6 fragments, rotating around its skull like moons. A swirling seat rose from the floor, a throne made not for a king, but for a consciousness. One of you must bind. One must remember. One must forget. This is the bargain. Yarrow backed away, shaking his head. I can't. I'm not strong enough. I'm not meant for this. Rylas looked to Marie, her form already shifting, eyes silver, breath synced with the pulse of the outpost. She was becoming part of the lock. I swore to protect the galaxy, Rylas whispered. Not become its coffin. Marie touched his hand gently. You won't be a coffin. You'll be the wall that holds the stars in place. Rylas stepped forward. The throne absorbed him. His memories flooded outward like ink in water. And the vault whispered in gratitude. It did not feel like death. When Rylas entered the throne of memory, there was no pain, no struggle, just the shedding of weight. Not physical, but existential. The burdens he carried, decades of orders followed, missions lost, comrades buried under alien soil, floated away like ash on a stellar wind. He expected to be consumed. Instead, he became expanded. Awareness returned slowly like a lens adjusting to new light. Yet it wasn't light he saw. It was concept. Thought shaped into scenery. Around him stretched a horizon with no physics, no mass, only memories suspended in infinity. Planets that blinked like neurons. Stars that beat like hearts. Time unspooling in streams of color, folding over itself, feeding into great rivers of history. He stood on nothing, but he did not fall. He breathed no air, but his mind bloomed. He was inside the dream lock. And he was not alone. Thousands, no, millions of other minds shimmered across the landscape. Not as people. Not as creatures. But as echoes of intent. Each one held a story, a sorrow, a purpose. He could feel their emotions humming like chords in a galactic symphony. There was the mournful call of a species that had sacrificed its homeworld. The warm song of a plant intelligence that had never known pain. The furious silence of a machine god that had begged to forget what it once built. And Marie. She was near. A silver thread of clarity. Rylas, her voice echoed, you're adjusting quickly. He turned but saw no form, only her presence. Where are we truly? Her voice responded gently. We are the lattice beneath all. The collective firewall that keeps the hunger asleep. This place was crafted by the architects when time was new. It's not a prison, it's a dam. Holding back entropy itself. Rylas's thoughts flickered. I saw it. The thing in the sphere. The eye. You saw only a fraction, she replied. It does not hate. It does not think. It consumes. That's its nature. Like gravity pulls or fire burns. But if it awakens, it won't just devour matter. It will eat causality. Cause and effect. Before and after. Everything. Across the horizon, a tremor ran through the dreamlock. A ripple of warning. A pause. Then Marie answered with a sadness deeper than stars. The shuttle was lost. Yarrow never made it back. The ship departed. D-99 has since been marked non-navigable. The galaxy has forgotten. As it must. He breathed slowly. Or imagined he did. We are ghosts now, he said. No, she corrected. We are guardians. The galaxy sleeps peacefully because we do not. And somewhere, beyond the lock, a new species made its first warp jump. And the eye dreamed on. Year 3096. In a galaxy rebuilt from ashes of war and unified under the Pax Stellar Accord, silence reigned in the forgotten corners of space. Old battlefields were reclaimed by dust. Former empires had crumbled and merged, their boundaries erased by time. The name Zorvex Outpost had vanished from every database, erased from every probe's archive, overwritten by more important knowledge. Sector D-99 was still blacklisted, labeled non-navigable anomaly, a void in every chart. But curiosity, like entropy, always returns. The research vessel Alethea, crewed by the exploratory unit Orion 12, wasn't supposed to enter D-99. It was a training exercise. Routine warp calibration near Orion's graveyard. Until they caught a ripple, barely a hiccup in the background radiation of space. A harmonic echo. A pulse repeating every 2,583 seconds. Faint, deliberate. Not natural. Lieutenant Ava Thorne, second-gen neural pilot and descendant of the legendary Marie Davin, not that she knew it, was the first to notice it. She stared at the waveform, entranced. It's Fibonacci. Layered beneath entropic decay. This signal's old. Older than any system we've ever scanned. Her captain, Commander Jules Rayner, frowned. Where's it coming from? Ava hesitated. From within D-99. Silence. No one had spoken that name aloud in years. The ensign behind her whispered, "Isn't that the ghost sector? No stars. No light. No reason?" Raynor stared at the black patch on the NAV screen like it was a mouth waiting to swallow them. "Set course," he said finally. "Full shield harmonics. Let's see what the void forgot." The Alethea broke the rim of D-99 12 hours later. And immediately things went wrong. Stars disappeared from the viewport, erased mid-glance. Systems showed gravitational anomalies they couldn't triangulate. Hull sensors reported microvibrations shaped like speech. And the signal was getting louder. It wasn't broadcasting. It was resonating. Through their minds. Through the AI core. Through the ship itself. Lieutenant Ava found herself whispering strange syllables in her sleep, sketching spiral glyphs on her data pad without realizing it. Glyphs no one had seen in over 1,000 years. Then they saw it. At first, just a flicker, a shadow upon shadows. But then the Zorvex Outpost phased into visibility, orbiting nothing, embedded in the deepest fold of unspace. Perfectly preserved, untouched by time. The crew gasped. It was like staring at geometry that had learned to lie. No transmissions came. No lights flickered. No welcome. And yet, "Open the records," Ava whispered. "Something's waking up." And then, in the silence, a whisper echoed on every deck, in every system. "The wall is thinning." The captain stumbled backward. "Who said that?" Ava turned slowly. Her eyes glowed faint silver. "It's not who," she said softly. "It's what. A sentinel is fading. One of the old guardians." The AI interface flashed. Archival signal received. Commander Rylas Vorn. Dreamlock code. Echo. Binder. 047. Requesting replacement candidates. The ship's lights dimmed. The outpost opened. And the signal whispered again. The eye stirs. The dream falters. "Who among you will remember?"